Our topic for today's discussion is brachial plexus. What is brachial plexus? It is a plexus which is formed by various ventral rami of spinal nerves. A spinal nerve are 31 pairs and they exit from the intervertebral foramina. This one is the intervertebral foramen. Roots of spinal nerves are of two types. One is the dorsal root and one is the ventral root. This is spinal nerve. It is formed by a ventral root here and a dorsal root here. The ventral root is motor in nature and the dorsal root is sensory. There are two types of rami. One is dorsal ramus and one is the ventral ramus. Now the thing that we have to remember regarding plexuses is that the ventral rami constitute the plexuses of the body. In this picture we can see the various spinal nerves forming the sympathetic chain on either side of the spinal cord. The brachial plexus is composed of spinal nerves C5 to T1, C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. They constitute a plexus in the region of upper limb that is called the brachial plexus. The brachial plexus basically lies in the base of the neck. It travels through behind the clavicle towards the axilla. In the neck, it lies in the posterior triangle of the neck. Behind the clavicle, it has the following relations. In the axilla, it surrounds the second part of the axillary artery, one cord of it lying medial to it, one lateral to it, and one posterior to it. As I've mentioned earlier, it originates from C5 to T1. Now, what is a prefixed and a postfixed brachial plexus? Generally speaking, the brachial plexus is formed by C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. If C4 is also included, it becomes a prefixed plexus. Now C4 and T1 is weak. C4, C5, C6, C7, C8, T1 might be absent or it has a small role. This is a prefixed plexus. And what is a postfixed plexus? The postfixed plexus has an additional T2 added to it. C5 has little value and T1, T2 is added in it. So this is a postfixed plexus. This picture shows, it depicts the various parts of a brachial plexus. The plexus has roots that join to form a trunk, which gives off various branches, which join to form cords, and cords further give off branches. Now the roots, they lie in the posterior triangle of the neck. C5 and C6 roots join to form the upper trunk of brachial plexus. C7 continues as such to form the middle trunk of brachial plexus. And the C8 T1 roots join to form the lower trunk of the brachial plexus. So the brachial plexus has 5 roots which join to form 3 trunks, the upper, middle and lower trunks. Now each trunk gives off two divisions, one anterior and one posterior. Now the superior or upper trunk gives off an anterior division and a posterior division. The middle trunk gives off an anterior division and a posterior division. And the inferior trunk gives off an anterior division and a posterior division. So these yellow lines are the posterior divisions of the 3 trunks and the black lines are the anterior divisions of the three trunks. Now, how are the cords formed? The anterior division of the upper and middle trunk join to form the lateral cord of brachial plexus. The inferior trunk continues as such to form the medial cord of brachial plexus. And the posterior cords of the 3 trunks, so upper, middle and lower, join to form the posterior cord. I'll repeat this again. The C5-6 roots join to form superior trunk. C7 continues as middle trunk and C8-T1 join to form inferior trunk. Now, the anterior division of the superior and middle trunk join to form the lateral cord of brachial plexus. The inferior trunk continues as such to form the medial cord of brachial plexus, and the posterior divisions of the three trunks, the upper, middle, and lower trunks join to form the posterior cord of brachial plexus. Now the lateral, posterior, and medial three cords are formed, and they give off certain branches. The medial cord gives off mainly the ulnar nerve and a few other branches that I'll mention later. The posterior cord gives off axillary nerve and radial nerve mainly and few other branches. And the lateral cord gives off musculocutaneous, median, and radial nerve and a few other branches that I'll discuss later. In this picture, we can again see that the roots join to form the three trunks, superior, middle, and inferior. The trunks are giving off branches, anterior, posterior, anterior, posterior, anterior, posterior, and the branches join to form the three cords, the lateral, posterior, and medial cord, and the cords further give off branches, the terminal branches. In this picture, we can again see that the roots, upper two roots form superior trunk, middle goes as such, the lower two roots gives off inferior trunk. Then the posterior of the three forms posterior cord, and anterior of upper two forms lateral cord, and anterior of inferior forms medial cord. And finally, they give off certain branches. Now we'll discuss the branches of the brachial plexus one by one. Mainly the roots of the brachial plexus gives off dorsal scapular nerve, which is also nerve to rhomboids. It supplies the rhomboidus minor and rhomboidus major muscle. Then another branch is given from C5, C6, C7 roots, and it forms the long thoracic nerve or nerve to serratus anterior. It innervates the serratus anterior muscle, and paralysis of this causes the winging of scapula. In this picture where it is shown, here we can see that the root C5 gives off dorsal scapular nerve. The C5, C6, and C7 gives off the long thoracic nerve or nerve to subclavius. Now the branches of upper trunk. Among the three trunks, only the upper trunk gives off branches. One is the nerve to subclavius supplying subclavius muscle, and one is the suprascapular nerve supplying the supraspinatus and infraspinatus muscle. Here you can see this is the upper trunk giving off suprascapular nerve supplying supraspinatus and infraspinatus muscle, and the nerve to subclavius supplying the subclavius muscle. Then comes the cords. The lateral cord, first of all, gives off three branches. One is the lateral pectoral nerve supplying the pectoralis major and pectoralis minor muscle. Then is the musculocutaneous nerve, which supplies the muscles of the anterior compartment of arm, which are the biceps brachii, brachioradialis, brachialis. And next is the lateral root of median nerve. This median nerve lateral root, it also supplies the various muscles of the anterior compartment of forearm. The medial cord gives off five branches. One is the medial pectoral nerve, supplying the pectoralis major minor muscles. Then is the medial cutaneous nerve of arm, supplying the giving the cutaneous supply to arm. Then is the medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, giving cutaneous supply to the medial side of forearm. Then is the ulnar nerve, supplying the C8 and T1 area, the medial side of the forearm and hand. These are the branches. And then is the medial root of median nerve, this one. The medial root of median nerve supplies the medial side of the forearm. So medial cord has five branches. Then finally comes the posterior cord. The posterior cord gives upper subscapular nerve, lower subscapular nerve. The upper subscapular nerve supplies the subscapularis muscle. The lower subscapular nerve supplies the subscapularis plus teres major muscle, and the thoracodorsal nerve supplies the latissimus dorsi muscle. The last branch of posterior cord is axillary nerve. It supplies deltoid mainly and also the teres minor muscle. Then is the radial nerve. It supplies the three heads of triceps muscle and also the muscles of back of forearm. So we have just discussed the various branches of the cords and trunks and roots of the brachial plexus. In this picture, we can see the root C5 and C6. C5 They joined to form the superior trunk, which was giving the two branches. Then C5, C6, C7 roots join to form the long thoracic nerve. Middle trunk and inferior trunk do not give any branches. Then the cords come. The lateral cord gives three branches: the lateral pectoral nerve, the lateral root of median nerve, and the musculocutaneous nerve. The medial cord gives off the ulnar nerve, the medial root of median nerve. In addition, it gives off medial pectoral nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of arm, and medial cutaneous nerve of forearm. And the posterior cord gives off the suprascapular nerve, superior subscapular nerve, inferior subscapular nerve, brachiodorsal nerve, axillary nerve, and radial nerve. Now, what is Erb's point? A point where C5 and C6 roots join to form the upper trunk, and it divides into anterior division and posterior division. And from this upper trunk are coming off two branches, the nerve to subclavius and nerve suprascapular nerve. This point where all these six structures meet is called the Erb's point. Now, what is the importance of this point? There is a condition that is called the Erb's palsy. If this point is injured during difficult labor or delivery, what happens is that the root value C5 and C6 is damaged, and it leads to a position of the arm and hand that is called the porter's tip hand or the policeman hand or the waiter's tip hand. The position of the arm in this condition is that the arm is adducted, medially rotated, the forearm is pronated and extended. So what movements cannot take place in Erb's palsy are that the arm cannot be laterally rotated and abducted, the forearm cannot be flexed and supinated. Now another condition is the clump case paralysis. One thing more, that the Erb's palsy occurs when the upper trunk of the brachial plexus is damaged. Another condition is the clump case paralysis. In this, the lower trunk of the brachial plexus is damaged. What happens is that the C8T1 root value is disturbed. What happens is the position of the hand is called the claw hand. In claw hand, what happens is that there is hyperextension at the metacarpophalangeal joints and there is flexion at the interphalangeal joints. And the position of the hand is like a claw. So this is called the clump case paralysis. So this is all about today. Thank you.